First of all, let's talk about the three worlds. Across several magical traditions throughout history, we find reference to the concept of three worlds. These three worlds are known by many different names, but usually they're depicted as something to do with the world above, the world around, and the world below. Many of the contemporary Druid groups label these as the sky, the earth, and the sea. The sky, in this context, would be the world above, and this is the realm of the so-called gods. Some examples of different names for the sky or the world above would be the star kingdom, the celestial world, heaven, etc. And this is the realm of what we call the superconscious mind. The superconscious mind. Now, the earth is the world around us. I call it the world around. And it's the realm of the physical universe as we understand it. It's the place of manifestation and physicality. So it's known by names such as Middle Earth, or the terrestrial world, or the land. And this is the realm of the conscious mind. Now, the world below, often called by some, like I said, some Druid groups are call that the sea. The world below is the realm of the shades. It's the hidden, unseen, and mysterious world beneath the surface. It's the seat of emotion and dreams. It's the world of the magical. And it's known by names such as the underworld, the telestial world, or the dark world. This is the realm of the deep mind. So we tend to spend the bulk of our time in our day-to-day lives interacting with the physical world, the world around, and thus using our conscious minds. Our conscious minds have the ability to make choices, to reason things out, and our conscious minds function by thinking rationally. And since the world of the conscious mind is the physical world, the conscious mind understands pretty much only what it can see, smell, taste, hear, and touch. It defines itself with the physical body. It relates to the physical body. It identifies with the physical body. Underneath the surface is the world out of which the physical world comes, though. And that is the underworld. It's the seat of our deep minds and emotions. The deep mind is incapable of making decisions like the conscious mind is. It doesn't function through rational thought. It brings forth form and experience according to the beliefs which have been established in it through the dominant thought patterns given to it by the conscious mind. So the conscious mind is responsible for the bulk of what goes on over time in the deep mind. Most people are very sloppy about the thoughts that they think with their conscious minds, and they are unaware that these thoughts are like seeds planted below the surface of the ground. The deep mind being the seat of all manifestation in our lives, it brings forth the fruits of the thoughts that are planted within it, regardless of whether these fruits are harmful or helpful to us. This process of manifestation occurs in a very similar fashion to a seed which is planted below the surface of the earth, which in turn brings forth vegetation. All manner of vegetation can be grown from the earth, be that which gives food, shade, poison, weeds. The soil is not capable of choosing which seeds are planted within it. And in the same fashion, the deep mind is not capable of choosing to accept or reject any thought that is planted within it by the conscious mind. The superconscious mind exists in the realm of the world above. The superconscious mind is our own higher self. It's our best self, or our God self. This is the seat of our this is the seat of our conscience. And it's our own ability to judge right from wrong, and it's our connection with the infinite. It's the superconscious mind that is known as I am. It's pure awareness. From the perspective of the superconscious mind, there is only one. The superconscious mind does not perceive things as being separate like the conscious mind does. Let's talk about some superstitions in magical practice. Primitive forms of religious practice will often be fraught with superstitious thoughts when dealing with the different worlds. For instance, when interacting with the celestial world or the world above, a superstitious practitioner may perceive different deities as being separate and distinct from the practitioner. These deities are often seen as needing to be worshipped or supplicated or given sacrifices. Yet a trained magical practitioner will realize that the superconscious mind is our very own essence, and no deity external from us actually exists. Rather than needing to plead with these powers or fear these powers, they are seen by advanced practitioners as being personifications of the true self, or the I am, or the all that is. Some call this concept of oneness God, yet many find that this term itself is fraught with its own superstitions. Suffice it to say that coming to the realization that there's only one power in all the universe gives a magical practitioner much more effectiveness than the belief in multiple powers. Let's do that one again. Sorry about that. Suffice it to say that coming to the realization that there's only one power in all the universe gives a practitioner of magic much more effectiveness than the belief in multiple powers. With the belief in one power, all gods and goddesses are personifications of the one. There's nothing to oppose the one, since ultimately nothing else actually exists. The advanced practitioner of magic is comfortable in the presence of any pantheon, religion, or magical path, since they have the understanding that the one power is capable of being expressed in infinite ways throughout different cultures and traditions. A superstitious practitioner of magic may perceive the underworld as being a place that is haunted by external shades, demons, and spirits. They may make pacts with these entities and attempt to get them to do things for them, threatening them with the powers of the Almighty if the spirits fail them. Yet a trained practitioner will understand that the dark world is a repository of all thought and belief, and is the womb out of which all experience is born. All entities in the underworld are emotions, desires, and compulsions that are of our own making and are not separate from us. The trained practitioner recognizes that these dark powers are simply parts of their own mind that have been fragmented and must be reintegrated through the powers of the superconscious mind. Bringing peace and balance with the underworld allows, in turn, the manifestations which occur in our physical world to reflect the same balance and peace. To a superstitious practitioner of magic, the circumstances in our earth world are perceived as external things that are happening to us that must somehow be manipulated or fixed on one hand, or feared and hidden from on another hand. They see the physical world as being causative rather than the result of their habitual thinking over time. An advanced practitioner, on the other hand, will recognize that the physical world is an exact and mathematic result of all which has been planted by us into our deep minds, and they will thus turn the focus on the deep causes of these manifestations in order to correct the thought forms behind them. This focus allows them to change the underlying thought forms which exist in the underworld and thereby produce new, desired results in the physical world. So, why practice dark magic? Well, most people who have some experience in working with magic find that although they are getting some practical results, they often hit a ceiling as to what they can accomplish. They may have an understanding that the ceiling has to do with their own belief systems needing to be changed, but they can't figure out how to accomplish these changes permanently. And this is where dark magic comes in. The deep mind is a creature of habit. In fact, it's the seat of all habit. Everyone knows how difficult breaking a habit can be. The deep mind is compulsive by nature, and just simply wishing to make a change using our conscious minds isn't usually adequate to convince the deep mind to alter its habit patterns. The deep mind is habituated through belief. The only way to change the effects which the deep mind is habitually producing is by changing the beliefs which underpin those thoughts. Beliefs are the core of all thought forms. Beliefs live in the underworld. They are beyond our conscious understanding. Harmful beliefs that are deeply rooted in our underworld must be transformed if we are serious about changing the results that we are producing in our lives. This is the essence of dark magic, the act of traveling into the underworld and transforming that which is at odds with our desires. All right, let's talk about the dark one. Each of us has a dark self. Jung and others have called this being the shadow. The dark self is simply our own deep mind personified. Anthropomorphized, however, the dark self is often perceived as a deity, such as Hecate or the Dark Lord, Set, etc. There's nothing evil about this dark one. It's an organic and vital part of each person and is integral in the performance of all magic. Where the dark one gets a bad reputation begins with the fact that we tend to do whatever we can to avoid discomfort. That's just human nature. Whenever we're faced with parts of ourselves which are at odds with our own conditioning, then we tend to push these feelings and perceptions down and away from our conscious minds and pretend that they don't exist. It's important to remember that the deep mind is responsible for bringing into manifestation that which is retained within it, much like an old-fashioned photograph is developed in the darkroom. When we suppress that which causes us discomfort, we are in effect commanding the dark one to make it be so. Being that we don't want to be aware of these thoughts and feelings that we've been casting into the dark underworld, when they manifest for us in the physical, we tend to place blame externally for the appearance of these unwanted circumstances. We make other people and external circumstances powerful in our own minds when we say that things are beyond our control. This is where the misguided idea of the dark one being the devil comes from. In reality, the only devil is ignorance of how the mind operates. The dark one is only capable of bringing about the germination of the seeds which we have sown, both good and bad. The choice is ours completely as to what we sow. But the dark one is incapable of choosing that for us. It's always bringing forth what we deposit into the underworld. In working magic, it is impossible for a practitioner to go beyond a certain level before they just need to come to terms with the dark one. This is known by names such as jumping the abyss, walking in the veil of darkness, entering the dark night of the soul, and other such terms. In meeting and integrating the dark one, we begin to release a tremendous amount of power that has been wasted by us in keeping the awareness of our own darkness at bay. We suppress our darkness, which we find uncomfortable, while simultaneously casting it outwards onto perceived external sources in order to avoid taking responsibility for it. Then we blame these external people, things, and circumstances as being the cause of our darkness, while refusing to become fully aware that it was we who cast the darkness there to begin with. As we begin to integrate our darkness and our power is thus freed up from no longer having to keep so much at bay, we notice that our magic begins to work more quickly and more efficiently, sometimes instantly. The emotions that we have been avoiding, feeling, no longer have any power over us. Often in finding balance in the underworld, practitioners discover that they are less and less controlled by fear. They no longer feel victimized by circumstances in their lives. They have less propensity to be manipulated by others, and their bodies often begin to heal themselves spontaneously since the high stress activity of suppressing their darkness is no longer a part of their daily lives. So let's start some preliminary work this week in dark magic. It's important to understand that it's important that work in the dark underworld and with the Dark One be done slowly. It's important that work in the underworld and with the Dark One be done slowly. Attempting to get too much accomplished too quickly just brings up a great deal of fear and anxiety into the conscious mind. Dark magic should always bring about relief and positive benefit. If you notice any unusual or unwanted results in your daily life, you've probably just been trying to go too far too fast. As with all magic, a good mantra is, slowly is holy. To reiterate, dark magic should only bring positive results unless you are trying to get too much done too quickly. When discovering the netherworlds of consciousness, you will notice that there are many different types of entities that you may encounter. Although these are ultimately parts of your own deep mind, they are often very real entities from the perspective of the conscious mind. The entities which inhabit the underworld are varied. They are known by names such as demons, shades, devils, ghouls, banshees, chthonic spirits, etc. These are actually externalized facets of your own deep mind, but they can be very frightening when confronted. This is why it's not usually advisable to work directly with the spirits of the underworld, but only in the presence of and with the direct supervision of your own superconscious mind. Dialoguing alone directly with these spirits is at best a waste of time, and at worst, a recipe for madness. These entities are personified images of your own deep fears, hatreds, violent urges, and myriad of other negative personality traits that you've been avoiding for a long time. They have their own bizarre survival instincts and can feel threatened when it's obvious that you are no longer unconscious of them. In the presence of your superconscious mind, however, they are immediately integrated and no longer have any harmful effects, since they are no longer mutations of higher principles. They become the alchemical gold which has been transformed from the lead. Dark spirits cannot give you resolutions on their own because they don't know what the concept of resolution means. They are shades. They have no actual substance. They're spirits of darkness. Their identities are based on lies out of which they were born. While dialogues with underworld beings is not advisable, avoiding them is not the answer either. What we must do in working with our dark side is to invoke the power of our superconscious mind, and through the power of pure awareness, which is the realm of the superconscious, we are able to look at these dark entities directly and purposefully, and the lies out of which they were born are then rectified, and the energy wasted in keeping these demons alive in their demonic forms is thus instantly freed for us, and that energy can be used in creating the positive goals that we have as of yet been able to achieve. Say that again. That was a decent sentence. I'm going to say that again. Okay, the lies out of which they were born are then rectified, and the energy used in keeping these demons alive in their demonic forms is thus instantly freed for us and can then be used in creating the positive goals we have, as yet, have been unable to achieve. Common underworld entities that you can encounter. When working with the underworld, there are apt to be many dark spirits of different categories. And some common ones are in fear, the category of fear of sex, fear of failure, fear of violence, fear of imprisonment, fear of trusting others, fear of being alone, fear of darkness, fear of abandonment, fear of punishment, fear of creatures. There can be guilt over past behavior, guilt over sex, guilt over impulses, guilt over thoughts, guilt over feelings, etc. There can be inferiorities, hatreds, unrequited love. So you can start to just think of some of the demons that you carry with you, many of which you know that are there, but you just don't think of them as that. So what we want to do is when we start with dark magic, is to dive into the underworld. It's a diving exercise. When we encounter a part of ourselves, when we work the magic included in this course, rather than avoiding it, fearing it, or running from it, we learn to dive into it. Each and every demon that we are running from in our lives is actually an angel whose form and function we have distorted or shadowed in some way. As soon as we are able to integrate the demonic powers that are running our lives, we realize that they were never truly demonic to begin with. It's all an illusion. Look at dark magic, like panning for gold. During the gold rush, pioneers came out west in order to find gold and become wealthy. One of the methods that they used to use was called panning for gold. They would take muddy water from the deep and sift through it in order to separate the muck from the gold nuggets and the gold dust. And this is exactly what we do with dark magic. We are sifting through the mud of the underworld in order to find the gold that is part of us and is our birthright, and then allowing all that mud to be washed away, leaving us wealthy, spiritually, and in all ways. Okay, now let's talk about payment for underworld passage. Many ancient magical traditions have the concept of payment for passage into the underworld. If the entrance to the underworld was depicted as a river, then the pilot of the barge was given a fee to pass. Yet, in all these traditions, there was the concept of a person of sovereignty who did not need payment to pass. These were usually great and powerful magicians who were given free passage back and forth between the worlds. In the Greek tradition, the sovereignty was symbolized by the person holding a magical golden bow. You have sovereignty over your own mind. The underworld is your own deep mind, and you have the right to explore it. In giving you methods for accessing these astral levels, we borrow the symbol of this golden bow, wand, or scepter. This is a symbol of your right to be in your own mind. It is a symbol of the fact that you are never alone, that you are and your own higher self is with you every step of the way. That your own higher self is with you every step of the way. This wand is a part of you and cannot be lost and cannot be taken from you. So in traveling the underworld, it's in keeping consistent and let's talk about traveling the underworld. In keeping consistent with many of the forms of magical training I offer, we will again be employing the magical device known as the Orb of Light. We utilize this Orb of Light to help us stay clear, focused, relaxed, and at one with our superconscious minds. It is at once a protective device, a magic circle, a method of purification of our bodies, minds, and auras, and a vehicle for astral travel. The main difference in the Orb of Light as it is employed in dark magic versus other systems with which we work is that the orb is very bright on the inside only. The exterior of the orb is colored an infrared in order not to disturb the mechanisms and beings who exist in the underworld. Think of it as like night goggles. As light is damaging to these beings, much like light can be damaging to an embryo, an herbal extract, or an undeveloped photograph, etc. I have recordings that I will be including in this work for you to become familiar with. And the general procedures that we will be using to access this underworld itself are on these recordings, and in beginning your own encounters with the Dark One. Okay, let's talk about daily purification. Daily spiritual purification is recommended for all magical work, but it's especially necessary when you're doing dark magic. It's very easy to become distracted and self-hypnotized by the many illusions present in the lower astral realms that you'll be accessing. So it's recommended that work with the different meditations from a witch's primer, such as grounding and centering, orb of light, rainbow power meditation, etc., be done every day. With other purification practices such as ritual bathing and the like, as described in a witch's primer, be incorporated if not being performed regularly already. Okay, let's talk about invocation. It's recommended that all work with dark magic be initiated by using some kind of invocation. Since I teach a non-denominational approach, all references to specific deities is always kept a minimum, especially in this course. If you work with a specific deity or pantheon, please feel free to invoke using those names. But it must be stressed that these deities represent the one power that is perceived by the superconscious mind and not a separate deity. The concept of separate deities activates the lower mind and causes fear and confusion. The concept of one power activates the higher mind and brings about peace, healing, and integration. An example of a very simple but effective invocation that is useful prior to beginning any session with dark magic would be, I call upon the one power, the source of all that is, which has been called by many names. It constantly creates the universe and all things within it. I am a divine focus for this power. This power permeates every part of my mind, body, and affairs. It enfolds and protects me in all ways. So mote it be. There's an ancient invocation that was included in several of the old grimoires in different forms called the Bornless one, and that's an alternative if you like to use those old invocations. And it says, Thee I invoke the Bornless one. Thou art man made perfect, whom no man hath seen at any time. This is he whom the winds fear. Hear me and make subject unto me, so that every spell and scourge of the vast one shall be made obedient to me. I am he, the bornless spirit, strong and of immortal fire. I am he, the truth that lighteneth and thundereth. I am he whose mouth ever flameth. I am he, the begetter and the manifester unto the light. Other examples of invocations could be the Charge of the Goddess or the Lord's Prayer, or any prayer or invocation that brings you a sense of oneness with the one power and source of all that is. Okay, so this week you're going to do some homework. Perform an invocation prior to any magical work during these classes. And like I said, even the Lord's Prayer is all I usually use. Perform an invocation prior to any magical work during these classes, including your meditations. This can be done, one of the invocations included in this lesson, or one that you use from your own tradition, pantheon, or something that you enjoy. It should be short and to the point and spoken out loud. It should be clear that you are calling upon the one power out of which all is created. It should give you the feeling of peace, safety, love, and power. Now, I'm going to be including and uploading some meditations to my YouTube channel for the Dark Magic course, and I want you to perform these meditations at least once during the next week if you're going to work this course. Starting with the Underworld Orb of Light meditation, and then there's one called Descending into the Underworld, and there's another one called Encountering the Dark One. Now remember, when I refer to that infrared light, we're talking about like night vision, not necessarily like a heater in those meditations. It's not like a heater. It's like night vision, night goggles, okay? So that can be a little confusing sometimes. Okay, now with goals, I want you to make a list of all your most treasured goals, things that you want to be, do, and have. After each item, write down the reasons why you feel you haven't been able to achieve these things. This exercise will begin to open up some of the underworld beliefs that will be worked on in the coming weeks. Okay, some tools. Most of this magic can be modified to either use your regular ritual magical tools as described in a witch's primer. Let's do that one again. Most of this magic can be modified to either use your regular ritual magical tools as described in a witch's primer, or by working mentally. In addition to your altar tools, if you choose to use them, when working with evocations, you may decide that you want a speculum. The type of speculum you traditionally used for this type of work is a dark mirror. You can use any type of dark surface you desire. A piece of glass or stone, a bowl of water in a dark bowl, or a bowl of water with some black ink poured into it. Or you can use the inside of your eyelids as your dark mirror. But for those of you who want to use an actual dark mirror for their evocations, this is a good week to make or purchase one so that it will be ready for you when it's time to use it. And it's a very inexpensive and easy process. All you do is you purchase a picture frame that you like the look of. Make sure it's the type of frame that has a piece of glass on it. The frame should be large enough to see a general reflection of your face in it. It doesn't need to be too big, but not too tiny. Remove the glass from the frame and paint the reverse side of the glass with a black spray paint. Be sure to purchase a paint that is capable of painting on glass. Usually 2 or 3 light coats is sufficient. Make sure that you only spray paint in a well-ventilated area using a drop cloth or newspapers to avoid getting unwanted paint on other surfaces. Be sure to allow the paint to dry completely between coats. There should be no streaks or marks when viewed from the unpainted side. Once the glass has dried completely, simply replace the glass into the frame with the paint side in and the unpainted glass facing out. Cleanse the mirror with salt and water, fire and air as if you were consecrating any other tool, and voila, you have made your own dark mirror for working your evocations. Next week, simple instructions for charging your mirror will be given. And that is our first week of Dark Magic. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this was interesting for you, and there's a lot to get working on. Much love and many blessings.